J.K. Rowling, Irvine Welsh, Robert Louis Stevenson. You read it, they wrote it here. Edinburgh is a literary town, and the best place to see that is perhaps from on top of Carlton Hill. From the top of Carlton Hill, you'll see a city that seems to have been written into existence. Gothic spines of the Scott Monument. Waverley, the only station to be named after a novel. And then the new town, conjured up upon a plan, with its neoclassical architecture, earning the city the nickname Athens of the North. And then behind me there is an unfinished Parthenon, or a necropolis, which just shows you quite a lot of Edinburgh is still in people's imagination and doesn't quite make it into reality. The National Monument began in 1826 to complete the comparison to Athens with its very own necropolis. But this was abandoned 3 years later when the money ran out. This earned it the name Scotland's Disgrace, though its impressionistic quality has grown on the city. I quite like it. Downhill is another ambitious but divisive construction. At the Palace of Holyrood, the Scottish Parliament building is a confrontational statement piece. So here I am at Holyrood. Behind me is Holyrood Palace, the home of the Queen turned a gallery. And right across the road, not 10 metres difference, is the new Scottish Parliament building. Old meets new facing off, not a couple of taxis different. And then walling us in on the last side, with the sun behind me, is Arthur's Seat. It's an interesting space. Unlike the National Monument, it wasn't designed to draw comparisons to another city, but to put distance between Edinburgh and London. Built in 1999 to mark the devolution of powers to Scotland and the foundation of Scottish Parliament. Squared up to the front of Holyrood Palace, the Queen's official residence in Edinburgh, it is a defiant structure, taking Scottish Parliament in a bold, if ugly, new direction. It was no mistake that when the building was christened, it was opened by a rendition of Burns' defiant "A man's a man, ah that." The two buildings square off at the bottom of Edinburgh's Royal Mile. Royal because of the palace, and a mile because it is roughly the distance to the old Parliament buildings and Edinburgh Castle. If the other buildings in Edinburgh are all fairy tale follies and romantic mock-ups, Edinburgh Castle is the real deal. Graffiti found in the dungeons from the American War of Independence and downed German Luftwaffe pilots attest to this. It's still headquarters for the regiment, the Royal Scots Guards. However, today it's more of a centrepiece for tourists and writers who flock to the city's cafes in its shadow for a bit of inspiration. One of those cafes, the Elephant House, is perhaps most famous for claiming to be the birthplace of Harry Potter, though many other cafes could claim the same. As J.K. Rowling's adopted city, she admitted roaming from cafe to cafe when writing the story, which would become a phenomenon. It's easy to imagine. This book has changed the city. There are shops and monuments to its wizarding hero at every corner. But not far from the Elephant House, fans think they've found part of the city which might have shaped Rowling's early story. Greyfriars, the big graveyard behind Edinburgh Castle on the way down from the Grass Market. It's obviously more famous for Birking and herring, as it was called, body snatching to be sold to medical students, which, as you weren't allowed to use cadavers which hadn't been caught on the end of a hangman's rope. Any other source for dead bodies for the anatomy table was welcome. But apart from that reason, the grave robbers of the 1700s, it seems Harry Potter fans have started turning up, as just a good 200 metres away from the Elephant tea rooms, where J.K. Rowling came up with her character, is a mysterious grave to Masters Thomas Riddle, Esquire, and his son, another Thomas Riddle. Curiously familiar names to fans of the book. The alias of Lord Voldemort, the villain. But otherwise, other characters in the graveyard people might recognise is Greyfriars Bobby, a wee Scotch terrier, which also happens to sit as the mascot of the local pub, which I think I'm off to there next.